Please, can you hold my hand? Hold my hand, that's the subject of this talk today. And I'm going to be talking about the power of hand holding, what might get in the way, how we might have held hands more when we were little, and also how we can hold our own hand and witness what might happen when we do so. Becoming curious around the power of hand holding. This partly got prompted by a friend sending an article around how holding someone's hand can really help us rebalance our systems and can help us feel more comfortable and more secure, can ease anxiety. What is your experience these days of holding hands? Do you often hold hands with someone? Or does it feel like quite a rare thing to do? Maybe you have a partner and you hold hands with them. Maybe you've got a child and you hold hands with them. Or maybe actually you haven't held hands for quite a long time. I know I don't hold hands very often, but when I do, it feels so good. And it's something that I want to encourage more into my life with everyone around me. Because often we resort to holding someone's hand in dire times. So somebody might be very ill and we hold their hands, support them. They might be very stressed and we reach out and hold their hands. And yet, this gift of being human is that we can hold hands on a day-to-day basis. And probably what gets in the way for many of us is this cultural norm in many countries that mean to say you don't often see people just spontaneously holding hands. Is that true for you? Do you have any sort of cultural conditioning around that? You know, some cultures, you see people in the street holding hands and it's so normal. It's friends and it's just a very normal sighting. But where I come from, it's not so normal. And so in a way, it's like about deprogramming ourselves from some of this cultural conditioning so that we can all celebrate hand holding more often. Do you remember when you were little? Did you have more experience of hand holding, maybe from a parent or a guardian, or maybe from little friends? I remember when I was at primary school, when we walked down the street to go somewhere, we'd all have to hold the hands of one person next to us. So we'd go down 2 by 2, all holding someone's hand. And it's very sweet looking back on it. Let's have a little tune in. When we're holding hands with someone and it feels good to be holding their hand, imagine it now, what happens to our bodies? One thing I really notice is how much attention goes into the sensory experience of my hand. The minutest touch becomes more amplified in that contact with another. And so it really draws me into presence through that sensory experience. And it can be really captivating as well as supportive and relaxing. What do you notice now as you think about holding someone's hand? And whatever example that's come to mind for you, bring another one to mind. So, for instance, you could perhaps bring to mind holding someone's hand that's going through difficulties. Imagine holding their hand and again, noticing what the experience is, both in yourself and in the imaginary experience between the shared experience. For me, when I'm in that space, it feels so connecting, like words fall away And it's a real statement of I'm here, I'm here with you. I'm offering safety. I'm deeply connected. And let's perhaps turn that around to imagine that we're going through a tricky time. Maybe we're stressed or we're not very well. And someone reaches out and offers their hand and we hold their hand. Again, noticing the experience. What happens to our emotional bodies, our physical bodies, our sense of support. I remember a long time ago, I was in hospital just very briefly, and I was going through something that didn't feel very good. And one of the nurses just reached out and he held my hand tightly. And that was such a transformative moment. And he just kept holding my hand. He kept holding my hand. And it felt like he was the anchor point for me, real anchor point. And even all these decades on, I really remember the potency of that simple gesture. And it's so simple, isn't it? It's so simple, and it's available to us. Yeah, to connect in that way. Or if someone's hand isn't free, connecting through a touch on the shoulder or whatever, wherever it might be. And then I would like us to think, if we haven't thought already, holding hands of someone that we've recently come into connection with, where that's that spark of attraction and energy, like where the minutest little change in touch is almost like electricity. I don't know whether you've ever experienced anything like that, or even a little bit of that experience. It may be recently or maybe a long time ago. So all these witnessings just show us the power of hand holding, both receiving and giving. And I had a really curious experience the other night. I woke up and there was some anxiety running through my system, and I was thinking about hand holding, and I was like, oh, maybe I can hold my own hand. So I held my hands, and let's do it now to witness together what the experience is. So I want you to imagine that you're holding your hand, and actually do it. Assuming you can at this moment. So actually hold your hand and notice where your attention has gone, your sensory attention, and see how much information you're receiving through actually holding your own hand. Be temperature, might be sort of an energetic sensation, a level of physical sensations. It might be things changing in the body. And again, out of curiosity, does it feel like one hand is holding the other more than the other way around? So which, you had to say, which hand is doing the hold handing? Which would it be? And then bringing that awareness in, balancing the two out. So it becomes, just with intention, becomes more equal. And noticing what happens. And then switching so that the hand holding becomes more dominant in the other side. And noticing the really going between sort of support and receiving. And in this sort of like backwards and forwards, we can actually come into sort of a deeper listening on both sides, like more of a mutuality. It's interesting, when I hold someone's hand, I do have an awareness of, am I more holding, like grasping for support in some way, or am I more feeling like I'm the one that's supporting? Or does it feel like that, delicious mutuality? I mean, they're all delicious in their own ways, and they're all magic in their own ways. But it's lovely to bring awareness of that and help us to shine a light on what might need support in our system, what perhaps is looking for some sense of tenderness and care. So on to the last part of this talk is around breaking free of our cultural stereotypes and holding hands more with people that we wouldn't otherwise hold hands with. Because it does feel so good. And I think it's something that perhaps requires a little bit of practice, because if you're like me, coming from a culture where adult hand holding isn't particularly common outside of relationships, then it's sort of getting used to, again, like coming into hand holding and being comfortable walking down the street with someone, just holding a hand, maybe even swinging arms. I occasionally do that with some female friends, where we're just like, and male friends, just like holding hands and swinging our arms in that joyful, light-hearted, playful way. And it just feels so good. It's like honouring the connection, honouring, there's something that's deeper, that's communicated beyond words, that is a joy to be alive. So how might we do this? It's a good question, isn't it? Firstly, like I started with the talk, is like, can you hold my hand? The simple question. So when we are feeling a little bit vulnerable and maybe we're trying to be brave, rather than need to be really in a bad way, to have someone hold our hand, to be able to say, would you just mind holding my hand? We may be, just going to an appointment, or we may be with a friend. And I know it's been difficult over the last few years to hold hands, but luckily it's getting easier again. So being able to name, can I just hold your hand? And reclaiming the innocence of hand holding, reclaiming the glorious innocence of it. And the pure joy. So in that case where I was just, walking down the street holding hands, that freedom of holding hands. So maybe trying out that, and also experimenting with ourselves. So when we're on our own and there's no one around us to hold hands with, being able to offer that support to ourselves, which brings us into more presence, helps settle the nervous system. So I was just lying in bed, like holding my hands. Yeah. I'm curious to hear about your experiences, so please do post below. What's your relationship with hand holding? Who do you typically hold hands with? Would you like to hold hands with people more or not? Maybe there's some aversion to holding hands for whatever reason. It's all here to be explored. So do post in the comments below, and do subscribe to the channel and press the bell to get notifications for future videos. And I would love you to share this. So I'd love you to share this with anyone that works with people, that perhaps lives alone, or that just comes through your awareness spontaneously, using your intuition, that feels like, they might enjoy this video and it might give us food for thought. And maybe people that you might know that you would like to hold hands with more, you could send them this video and say, how about, you watch this? And perhaps even particular, like, friends of maybe the opposite sex, or people that you wouldn't, maybe you may have some inhibition about holding hands with. You could just send it over and say, what do you think about this? Anyone you might think of. so that we can share the gift of hand holding and make it more of a cultural norm, so that we can be more human together. Wishing you a fabulous week. So much love and light.